Never get used to that. Oh, hey, patrol members. Welcome to another episode of Tales and Mysteries of the Mojave Patrol. And it is finally getting to be a little fall-like here. We are we are 65 degrees, and I'll put the for you imperial deniers, I'll put that temperature down here. 65 degrees, and it hasn't been this cool at night in months. And there's even a little chance of drizzle over the next couple of days. I cannot wait for that. That is going to be something. So, no whiskey tonight, because I have a super spooky story. It's a super spooky story. But of course, since the grape Kool-Aid is here, I do have a cigar. And it's a Maduro. It's out of the box cigar. When I bought it, there was no name on the box. It is a Churchill Maduro. I'm sorry, I'm blocking the light. That's there we go. It's a Maduro Churchill, and I got a new knife over the weekend. It's just an old souvenir knife, and an old souvenir knife is better than a modern, a good knife. It's made by the Colonial Company. Once again, I'm a liar. It's made by the Imperial Company. It is razor sharp. We're going to use it to decap our cigar. I hope things are going really well for you guys this Halloween season. I hope you get a lot of trick-or-treaters. The past 2 years we've gotten 0 trick-or-treaters. 0. Count them. 0, Z, null, nothing. And Mrs. Patrol didn't even want to buy candy because she doesn't want to buy candy and then throw it in the trash because she didn't want to. She didn't want to get her hopes up. Look at that. Believe it or not, I'm trying to cut down. I've been eating a lot of salads lately, cutting way back on carbs, no more sugared sodas. But nothing happens overnight, right? Let's get this going. That is a really good cigar. That is a really good cigar. I really needed to relax today. Good cigar. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it. Tonight's story is going to be exclusively about the black-eyed children. Yep. If you haven't heard about them, they're one of the most frightening things you could probably come across in the paranormal world. Now, these black-eyed children, they don't look very threatening. But they want to get into your home. They want to get into your car. They'll be persistent. Suddenly, you'll kind of notice there's something not right about them. Their eyes are pure black, no whites, no irises. Totally devoid of that. And that'll send a chill up your spine. Yeah, when you finally come across the black-eyed children, right up. So the black-eyed children, or the black-eyed kids, BEKs, as they're known in the paranormal world, is kind of an urban legend about paranormal creatures that resemble children between the ages of, I'd say about 6 and 16. And the creatures have pale skin, black eyes, and reportedly have been seen hitchhiking, panhandling, or show up on the doorsteps to residential homes. And the last thing you want to have happen, like one of the people in the stories here, is around 2 o'clock in the morning, have someone knock on your door, and it's the black-eyed children. So, there have been dozens of stories about the black-eyed children. They all follow a very similar pattern. Kids with eyes completely blacked out appear at people's home or vehicles. They knock on a door, and then they insist on getting inside. And anyone who is around them feels an immense, overwhelming sense of dread. Now here's the rub. They'll ask you if they can come in and use the restroom. They'll ask you if they can come in and use the phone to call their mother. They'll ask you, they'll tell you they're hungry. They'll tell you they're lost. And if you're really hesitant, they really become insistent. And then they usually blurt out that they cannot come in unless you let them in or you invite them in, right? Sometimes their clothing seems dated. Sometimes people who said they have like talon-like feet. But invariably, and here's the weird part about these stories, it doesn't matter where in the country I shouldn't say that. It doesn't matter where in the world you go. From Scandinavia to Somalia, the kids are all the same. An older one, a younger one. Blonde, very pale white skin. Wearing usually Levi's and hoodies. Almost all the stories have been identical. Some conspiracy people feel that the black-eyed children are aliens trying to enter their earth. Other religious people, demonologists, stuff, believe that they're demons or the devil's children trying to get you to let the devil into their house. A lot of people, they're going to tell you, don't let him in. Right? Don't let him in. The story started appearing in the 80s, and they reached their peak in the 1990s. There's a reporter named Brian Bethel, who has written a whole bunch of these stories, and he lives in Abilene, Texas. And the first story is about an elderly couple that live in the middle of nowhere in Vermont. And it was late at night. It was blowing 60 outside, snowing, and they got a knock at the door like 10 o'clock at night. And of course, the elderly wife goes to the door and opens the door, and there are the two black-eyed children. And they ask the woman if they can come into the house and call their mother. So she invites them in, and because it's very cold out, and they come in and they sit on the couch, and they're looking down. So she goes in the kitchen with her husband, and she makes them some hot cocoa and brings it back into the room. And she's asked them all these questions. Where do you live? How old are you? Why are you wandering around this late at night? They don't answer any of these questions. Then the older of the two siblings, they're both boys, looks up at her, and she realizes that he has completely black eyes. And then he looks back down and asks if they can go use the restroom, the bathroom. So she points down to the end of the hall, and they go there. She goes back into the kitchen, and her husband is standing over the sink with his face against his hand. And when she asks him what's wrong, when he pulls his hand away, it's covered in blood, and he's bleeding profusely from his nose. All of a sudden, the whole house is plunged in darkness, and the lights go out. So she runs back into the family room where the children were sitting at the couch till they went to the bedroom, and they run down the hallway and out the door, the front door. And, I kind of blew part of the story. They come back into the room and the lights are out. And the two kids standing there in the gloom of the family room, they tell the woman that their parents are outside to pick them up. Well, they never used the phone. So they go out the front door, and the man, he's holding a towel to his face, and the woman, they go to the door, and there at the end of their walkway is a large black car with two tall, slender men standing outside of it. So she raises her hand and waves at them, and they don't respond. And the two children walk to the end of the street, get in the car, and the car drives away, and no one ever sees them again. And I wish that was the end of the story, because the husband's nosebleeds never stop. They never stop. And he ends up going to the doctor, where the doctor tells him he has a very, very, very rare form of cancer. So, not too long after the kids left, of course, the power comes back on, and he doesn't go on and say what happened to the husband, but well, shouldn't let the kids into the house. These children can show up any place at any time in any country. There have been reports of them in India. There's been reports of them in England. There's been reports of them in China. There's been reports of them in Japan. There's been reports of these children in Africa, and they're all the same. Can you imagine the shock of a Japanese family answering the door late at night, and here's two Anglo kids, standing out in front of their house. What a trip that would be, right? You know, I haven't been able to find any articles that talk about whether these kids speak the native language of the place that they're, of the families they're trying to encroach upon. Most of the time, people claim to see the children when they're driving late at night, or they'll see them outside their windows late at night, or some of them even have seen the children in the corners of their room. They wake up, they're there. It's really bizarre. It's really bizarre what goes on with these children. So if you're driving late at night, don't be picking up any hitchhiking black-eyed children. So the children normally wear, like I'm saying, so they wear usually dark clothing, Levi's, hooded sweatshirts. Their skin is very pale. They look like they're desperate. They look like they need help. They make you feel guilty if you don't help. And even their voices can sound desperate to people trying to help them, right? So you have to be incredibly careful. Now, not that I believe in these creatures, but a woman whose name we'll just say is Karen, no last name. She and her roommate are driving across Louisiana in the middle of the night, and they're running low on gas. And so up ahead is about 2 o'clock in the morning is a gas station, and they pull in, and they're checking the map, and it's in a lonely stretch of Louisiana. And out from around the back of the gas station come 2 children, a girl who's the older of the 2, and a little boy whose hand she's holding. So they approach Karen and they ask her if they can have a ride. And Karen's thinking, who the hell lets their kids wander around outside at 2 a.m.? Then the girl looks up at Karen and says, "We need a ride. You need to let us in your car." Well, she noticed that the kids once again had totally black eyes. Karen, being the cautious sort, jumps in the car, starts it up, hits the gas, and takes off. They're going to a different gas station. And the last thing she sees is, in the rearview mirror, in the lights of the gas station, are the 2 children standing in the road looking after her. So Karen said, needless to say, if she's ever driving through Louisiana at night, she doesn't stop, and she drives with the windows and the doors up and the doors locked. Yeah, that's kind of a creepy event there. There was a dog walker in the UK who was, this is around 1990, and he's walking his dogs, and he's taking a path through a wooded area, and it's not dark, but it's after sunset, that twilighty time of day. And as he's walking through this wooded area, taking the shortcut, he starts to feel an immense sense of dread. And he says the dogs are acting nervous. They're barking and growling and jumping, some things that the dogs almost never do. And all of a sudden, he feels something pull at the back of his jacket. When he turns around, he said there was a girl of about 7 or 8 years old standing there in ragged clothes with completely black eyes. And he stares at her for a second, and the dogs are trying to pull him away from her. And he goes, "What do you want?" And he said she started laughing in this really loud, creepy laugh that actually hurt his ears. And yeah, he took off. He got the heck out of there and left her in the dust. And her laughter just followed. He heard her laughter until he got out of the wood. Yeah. That's pretty creepy. That's pretty creepy. And here's a woman. We're just going to call her Singh because she lives in India. Excuse me. Well, Miss Singh, or Mrs. Singh, was sound asleep in her bed at night, and she and her husband were asleep in the bedroom with their 21-month-old daughter. When their dog, that she called Lucy, starts barking for no apparent reason. So it wakes her up, and the dog is standing by the front door of their house, barking and barking and barking. And she's trying to calm the dog down, telling the dog, it's nothing, don't worry about it, it's midnight, there's nothing out there. And she said when she grabbed the doorknob or the door handle to open a door, she started to feel sick to her stomach. And when she did that, the dog really started growling. I mean, growling, a low growl, getting down low. She pulls open the door, and there on the doorstep are two of the black-eyed children. They're both wearing a pair of jeans. One was a little boy, about 4 years old. The other girl, the tall one, the oldest one was a girl. She said she was about 16. And they demanded to be let in. Let us in your house. And she didn't ever speak to them. Something she felt was pulling her back into the house away from the kids. The dog was still growling in a low position down by her ankles. But she felt a pull, something pulling her away from the door. And yet she felt frozen on the spot. And by her own admission, she never believed in anything paranormal. She was an atheist, didn't believe in any of that type of thing. Yet in her mind, she's thinking, oh my God, here are the BEKs right in front of me, right here. So she closes the door. She finally has the gumption to close the door. The girl on the other side is still calling her. Open the door and let me in. Open the door. You have to open the door and let me in. She goes back to the bedroom, gets back into bed, and sits up the entire rest of the night. She never goes to sleep. And in reality, she says she has had a tough time sleeping since that period of time. Of course, the next morning, her husband tells her it's all a dream. But come on, folks, you and I know that Miss Singh had no dream. This is a real event where these kids try to do an incursion into her home. Have any of you ever had something like this happen to them? If you do, put it down in the comments. So, the originator of these stories, Brian Bethel, the news reporter, wrote these stories because he did an investigation over a year after he had his own encounter with the black-eyed children. He had left he was living right here in California. And he left work and he realized that he had forgotten to pay a bill. So he pulled over in front of the Westwood Theater and is using the light from the marquee to fill out a check, right? He's writing it out when he hears a knock on the driver's side window of his car. And he looks up to see what appears to be a 9-year-old boy and a 13-year-old boy, both standing there wearing hoodies, right out in front of his car, right next to his car. Brian said that the boys kept staring at him with their black eyes, right? And they said that they wanted him to take them to a phone where they could call their mother to bring them movies, money to see a movie. That's like 10 o'clock at night, right? And he said, give me your mother's phone number and I'll call her for you. They got very angry and started pounding on the glass, saying that you have to invite us in, you have to let us in the car, right? We can't do anything unless you let us in. He rolled the window all the way up, started the car, and left the kids in the dust. As he sped past, he looked in the rearview mirror, and there were no kids in the street. They had vanished. They had vanished. So, the black-eyed children. Holy cow. What are they? Strange creatures from another dimension? Extraterrestrial beings? Or some kind of demon? Who knows? Who knows? But if you've ever seen anything like that, put a comment down here. Put it down in the comments. I'm going to tell you my own spooky story, and I think I told it last year, but it's similar, not exactly the same. I'm not saying it was black-eyed children, but it was a strange thing that happened to me one night on the way home from work. I was driving home from work from Disneyland. I had just crossed over the 91 freeway on Harbor Boulevard, and I stopped at a light. On my left was the back of a building. I would say 50 to 75 feet long. A white, painted a light color. And there was a guy standing, just standing on the sidewalk, and he was holding a cell phone in his hand, because I could see the light on his face, because it was pretty dark, but you could see his face very clearly in the light. So just like right now, I'm sitting in the car. I had the same jacket on. Got my arm on the window, and I'm smoking a cigar. Waiting for the light to change. I look over, and he's standing there with his phone. And I'm just staring at him, waiting for the light to change. And he looks up at me. Then he gets this kind of astonished look on his face. And drops his phone. Not drops on a gun, but lowers his arm, and he's just staring at me. So I thought, I get uncomfortable when people stare at me. So this is what I did. That quick. He was gone. He was gone. He wasn't walking up the street. He wasn't coming down the street. He wasn't running in either direction. I don't see him in my mirror. I don't see him this way. I want to see you go and run 50, 60 feet in a second. Not happening. Not happening. I wonder if it is the devil. Because the black-eyed children reports have died off. Because once the devil knows you've got him figured out, he comes up with something new to fool you. Yes, he does. Anyway, I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment. If you have any spooky stories, if you want to hear a spooky story, I'll try to accommodate you. Just put it down in the comments. We'll take care of it. And God, I hope you all have a happy Halloween. I need to get going. Oh man. Later, Mater.